Okay. Okay. Good morning, all, and welcome to the New Jersey Family Support Planning Council's quarterly meeting. And I'm Eileen Hurley, chairperson for the statewide council. And I'd like to welcome everyone that's in person and people that are joining us virtually. So just a little bit about our councils. Based on the Family Support Act of 1993, we were formed, and we have 10 councils covering the state of New Jersey, and we're comprised of parents that are volunteers that either have a child with a disability or are related to someone that has one, or are self-advocates. And as I said priorly, we are all volunteers, and we work along with the Division of Human Services, DDD, DCF, and others to create policy in unison and collaborate just to create the best lives for our loved ones. So just today's topic is, well, our objective today, or our goal, is to learn about inpatient out-of-home crisis stabilization services for children and adults. And so what's going to really occur here is we're going to have an overview of inpatient services, how to access them, and planning for discharge and aftercare, and practical techniques and strategies to optimize advocacy efforts. So that's what the plan is for this morning. And we are really pleased to have several wonderful speakers on these topics. And I'll just introduce, I think I'm just going to introduce all of our speakers right now, because I think that would be the most effective way to do it. So we have Michael Higginbotham, who is the Assistant Director of the Office of Residential Services, Division of Children's System of Care, and the NJ Department of Children's and Families. We have Donna Salvador, who is the Clinical Director, Division of Children's System of Care, Department of Children and Families. And we have Roy Leitstein, who is the Chief Executive Officer and President of Legacy Treatment Services. And so Roy has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in human services, and his leadership has been through collective efforts at the Salem Center and Wood Services. And Legacy Treatment Services address the unique needs of people with IDD and co-occurring behavioral issues. So, and he also assists people that have psychiatric crisis. And we are pleased to have Jonathan Seafried, who is the Assistant Commissioner, Division of Developmental Disabilities, Department of Human Services. And Jonathan has been with the department since 2017. And throughout his career, he has served people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Since joining the division, he has held leadership roles in many critical areas, including large-scale institutional to community transitions, significant process on waiting list placement, and at one point, director of housing. And he was instrumental in the establishment of affordable housing subsidies. Also, Jonathan sits with us, which is wonderful, with the Family Advisory Council, so we can collaborate and work on policy. Bonny Uchenna Life, who is the Director of DD Services, Crisis Assessment Response and Enhanced Services Cares at Trinitas Medical Center, will be speaking. And then we also have Donna Icovino, who is a family advocate, the former chair of the Department of Human Services Dual Diagnosis Task Force, and co-author of an Enhanced Family Crisis Handbook, a behavioral health and wellness kit, which for those of us that are here, they're on the table. I think, Kyoko, are we going to be, the people that are joining virtually, is there a there's a link for the handbook or, okay, excellent. All right. So I guess Michael, I think, is Michael virtual?
Good morning. Yes, I am. I apologize. I cannot have my camera on, but I am here. Hi.
Oh, and I can't see you because I have the podium is facing wrong. So hello all. Hello all who are virtual. Okay. All right. I'm going to step aside and thank you, Michael. Okay.
Shall I get started, Eileen? I'm sorry.
Yes, please do.
Great. Actually, Diana's going to give a few comments about our system of care, and then we're going to go into the specific programs.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. I'm Diana Salvador. I'm a child psychologist by trade and the clinical director at the New Jersey Children's System of Care. As you know, this is the Children's System of Care is our public behavioral health system in New Jersey. It's the largest and most comprehensive in the nation, and is designed to serve children and their families, including those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we have a huge continuum of care, including everything from in-home services all the way up to residential services, which Michael is going to discuss a little bit today in more detail, as well as Roy Leitstein. We do have a contracted systems administrator perform care, and we contract with them to authorize services for our children and families across the state. They are the single point of entry for anybody seeking services in New Jersey, and designed to make the process of engaging in our services very simple through accessing a 1-800 number, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that any parent can call and request services. For our youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families, we have a range of services that we offer, from intensive in-home services, habilitation services, family support services, respite, summer camp services, as well as many others, including our crisis stabilization and assessment program. A lot of parents that I've talked to during my short tenure at the Children's System of Care have voiced some concerns about what seems to be a complicated system, and questions about how to access it. And there's a beautiful website that Perform Care has. I'm going to put a couple key links on that website into the chat to really guide you toward some targeted resources that I think will be very helpful, that really provide sort of an overview of services for youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. Everything from our youth and family guide to a written youth and family guide, as well as a video on how to complete the IDD eligibility application. And also a PDF on frequently asked questions. So I'm hoping you will find that useful, and can share that information widely with other families who are seeking to access our services in New Jersey. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Michael Higginbotham, who again is the Assistant Director for our Office of Residential Services at the New Jersey Department of Children and Families. Michael?
Thank you, Diana. Good morning, folks. As Diana mentioned, I'm the Assistant Director who oversees the Office of Residential Services. The Office of Residential Services has a large continuum of out-of-home treatment programs, from small residential programs to much larger. Today's focus and the time that we have is going to be on the crisis program. So the name of the crisis program is Crisis Stabilization and Assessment Program. And I'll be referring to that as CSAP. And what I'd like to do in the time that we have is give you a description of what a CSAP is, the eligibility criteria, and what to expect from the referral process. So the CSAP programs are, they provide 24-hour care in a highly structured community-based setting with services to stabilize youth with intellectual developmental disabilities who are in crisis and who are unable to be safely supported in their current living situation. It's important to note that these CSAPs are group home settings in residential communities. They're not inpatient hospital units or institutions. There are inpatient hospital units, but the program, the CSAP is not one of those. These are 5-bed programs located in homes in the community. And that could be, some suburban areas, rural, urban, and, so they do have neighbors in close proximity. The CSAPs provide comprehensive diagnostic assessment that result in the identification of appropriate in-home services and supports that can meet the youth or young adults' treatment needs upon transition. I may use the word youth often just as a general catch-all, but the services are for individuals between age 6 and 20. So we do have group homes with the lower age group as well as mid and upper age groups. The primary goal upon stabilization is to transition the youth back to the community, back home, with wraparound services and supports whenever possible. Youth receiving CSAP services present with challenges that involve their intellectual skills, communication skills, and adaptive and motor skills. The diagnoses that youth have who enter the program might include autism spectrum disorder, intellectual disability, and this may occur with or without a behavioral health condition. And many individuals that do enter the program have both a intellectual developmental disability and a co-occurring. Youth may present with physical or medical limitations that might include seizure disorder, cerebral palsy, diabetes. Youth with specialized medical needs will be considered on an individualized basis. Youth can present with a variety of functional abilities. Some youth could be independent in all areas of basic living or basic activities of daily living. Others may require varying levels of assistance, ranging from complete assistance to complete their basic self-care tasks. That could range from verbal and physical prompts to hand-over-hand assistance, and some youth need total staff care. The programs are able to manage that wide range. Eligibility. CSAPs are, as I noted, are for youth ages 6 to 20, males and females. These 5-bed homes do serve both males and females to ensure that we have availability for youth in the area. The parent or caregiver must consent to treatment. If a youth is over the age of 18 and does not have a guardian, then he or she would need to consent to treatment as much as they're capable of doing so, of course. Youth must be a resident of New Jersey. For individuals under the age of 18, the legal residency of the parent or legal guardian will determine the minor's residence. Now, unlike other state IDD services that are available, CSAPs do not require DD eligibility. If a youth has not been determined DD eligible, we use assessments that would need to indicate moderate to high needs and challenges regarding adaptive functioning. The referral must describe the behaviors and other indicators that demonstrate the youth has functional limitations that require specialized services that are only available in an IDD out-of-home setting. It's important to note for individuals that enter a crisis stabilization and assessment program that have not had DD eligibility, that application must occur within 10 days of admission. The intensity of services support youth that are living in their home, experiencing a behavioral crisis, which is defined as a situation in which the youth requires behavioral health intervention that cannot be safely provided outside of a 24-hour supervised setting, despite reasonable efforts to try to stabilize the youth in the home. And youth or young adults who present with high-risk behaviors that jeopardize their safety or others may require inpatient treatment prior to entering the CSAP community setting. I'm going to run through the referral process high level just to give you an idea of what you might expect should you or a family you're working with require these services. Unless it's an emergency, a CMO, a care management organization, is required to access CSAP services. This ensures that the child family team has explored all community services. However, if there's an emergency and a CMO is not involved with a family may call Perform Care, and they would dispatch mobile response and stabilization services. And that is a assessment and counseling program where can respond 24 hours a day to an individual's home. They would complete an assessment and then they would make that referral to the CSAP program. There are 10 5-bed CSAP homes. I think I mentioned they're in the central region of New Jersey to provide access as much as possible to individuals in various parts of the state. So there's a total of 50 beds across these 10 5-bed homes. The services are very much in high demand. So depending on the age of the youth or young adult or their individual medical needs, there may be and often is a wait for admission to a crisis stabilization program. The agencies that operate the crisis programs are Allies, Serve, YCS, and Legacy Treatment Services. Legacy actually operates 5 of the 10 homes. And at this point, I'm going to hand this over to Roy, who is, as Eileen noted, is the CEO of Legacy and is very familiar with these services. Roy will be able to share with you what to expect when an individual enters a CSAP and what that treatment looks like. Roy?
Thanks, Mike. Good morning. How's everybody doing? We're doing all right? Thanks for having me. Thank you to the Family Planning Council for hosting this. And Mike, Diana, thanks so much for the baton off. And Mike, Diana, and I work together a lot. So for folks that aren't familiar with Legacy Treatment Services, we're a large-scale behavioral health and social service organization. I see some folks in here that Mercedes and I go back 20 years, 25 years, right? So, it's a little bit of a coming home. In regard to, first off, we should acknowledge and understand how many advancements have been made through the Department of Children and Families and the Children's System of Care in trying to stand these services up. There's an insufficient number of services to meet the demand, for sure, but we're light years ahead of where we were at, just 5 years ago. And Legacy had a unique approach to the CSAP programs. I don't know why we love these acronyms so much, but we do. So, we had a unique approach because when the crisis stabilization assessment programs were initially RFP'd, it was during the transition of youth services from the Division of Developmental Disabilities over to the Department of Children and Families. And when we first opened up 3 programs, I think we won 3 programs through that RFP, they lost an exorbitant amount of money in a single year because the services are so intense. Because the truth is, which you all are so well aware of, no 2 children are the same and no 2 children's needs are the same. And so really what the crisis stabilization and assessment programs are designed to do is get a foundational assessment and base for each child and each family, and then create an individualized treatment plan, right, that marries both a rehabilitation model and a habilitation model together to see what level of autonomy and independence we can create for youth and for families. And so I'm just going to talk about some of the staffing that's associated inside of these programs. I think that might be helpful for folks, and to sort of level set expectations. I'm sometimes described as the non-racist Archie Bunker of the nonprofit world. So I just call it like I see it, right? So I only believe in being honest, right? And so we're going to really try not to overpromise and underdeliver in regard to your understanding of what takes place in these programs. The staffing is robust inside of the stabilization programs. There's a master's level program director. There's also a licensed social worker. There's nursing. Depends on who's in the program at Legacy, right? And allies. I should point out that Legacy Treatment Services is an affiliate of Wood Services. In addition to being the CEO at Legacy and overseeing the 20,000 people that we'll see in a year, I run behavioral health over at Woods in Pennsylvania, and Woods also has programs in New Jersey. Allies is also part of that Woods system of care. And so that tends to make our resources available to us a tad different than other folks, because essentially what we do is, regardless of funding, we try to get the services that are needed inside of a program. For example, physical therapy or occupational therapy wouldn't be inclusive of what would traditionally be take place, right? But we're going to layer those in. So you're going to have nursing. You're also going to have psychiatry, right? And that psychiatry will be delivered traditionally twofold: one through a board certified child and adolescent psychiatrist. It just so happens that our chief medical officer, Dr. Hawk, son has autism, and so it's a passion for him. And then also through an APN or a nurse practitioner model. We also have BCBAs, right? Although I will tell you at Legacy, we are not ABA dogmatic. We take an eclectic approach, right? And so while there is ABA and we utilize BCBAs, we really try to take a look holistically and not just the sort of extinguishing of behaviors. What we found, one of the benefits of looking at treatment from a holistic perspective was family therapy, was helping the whole family, sibling groups. What we often find is that parents and families that come in are simply exhausted. And they have been trying to access services. They didn't know what services existed. They were trying to piecemeal and provide those services themselves. And so that lent itself to more than just developing a treatment plan for the child coming in, but for the family as a whole. Mike and Diana alluded to this. And again, I have to give kudos to DCF and CSOC, because it is a dynamic structure that takes place, which is not traditional in most states or in most programs and funding. And so pretty much annually, we're looking at expectations and what services need to be in place or not in place. That segues nicely into the creation of a transition specialist. We know one of the most difficult times for parents and for families is when a child is going to age out of the CSOC or DCF system and head over to Jonathan and the adult system. And so we really want to focus on making that transition as smooth as possible prior to the 21st birthday, if a youth is with us. As Mike alluded to, we're going to really focus on ADLs, basic right activities for daily living, right? Just looking for simple concepts, right? From everything from being able to eat on your own to being able to conduct personal hygiene on your own. Legacy is a hands-on agency, so but we utilize what's called the UCARU model. So in an effort to reduce hands-on restraint, We utilize the UCARU model, which was developed by the Grafton Institute out of Virginia. And so we have seen drastic reductions in the utilization of hands-on. There are no visiting hours in these programs. Families just come to see your kids, right? So for Legacy and in the R5 stabilization programs, parents can come at any time. We ask you to notify the program that you're coming because there's structure that takes place throughout the day for each child, individual sessions that will take place, whether that's with their behaviorist, right? Or it could be a primary care visit, meeting with the psychiatrist. And then also, while it is not mandated through regulation in all of Legacy's out-of-home services, there's cameras in common areas, right? Because we want to make sure that we're fully aware of what's transpiring in each of these homes. Legacy's got 90 buildings between south of Salem and as north as Burlington. There's a large number of DSPs, direct service professionals, who receive 40 hours of training before they are able to work with any child. And then post that, there's now a DSP certification course that we have created to try and professionalize the individual caregivers. As Mike already alluded to, the level of service inside the program is pretty much 100% throughout the year. As soon as one child leaves, we'll have another child come in. Those admissions can take all of our referrals, as Mike and Diana alluded to, come through the children's system of care, through Perform Care. Those admissions could take place in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning. We just don't know. There is, and the average length of stay inside of these programs for Legacy is sort of all over the map. We get some youth that are able to stabilize, and then they could be out in as soon as 5 or 6 months and back home. We have other youth where it becomes very apparent that this child is going to be with us and may need a higher level of care even than the crisis stabilization program, or a lower level of care like a group home level 2. And so they'll be with us until they transition to, we'll stabilize behavior. So as much as we can, and then the child will move on. So the length of stay is sort of all over the map. We do require family participation and family involvement. As Mike alluded to, this is a voluntary placement. No one just all of a sudden discharges a child and they go back home. But we have experienced firsthand with the youth that we serve that one of the most significant triggers for our kids and your kids is their ability to see their loved ones and their caregivers on a pretty regular basis. And so we do have nursing, but it is not designed so this is not designed for medically fragile. We see all sorts of medically intensive youth that we are able to serve. But if you require 24/7 one-on-one nursing support, in general, that will probably be exclusionary criteria. In terms of age range, again, speaks very well to the system. Each one of these 5 programs that are crisis stabilization programs, the age range is usually within 3 years of each other, right? So, and Diana and Mike and the entire CSOC and DCF team, we again look at this in real time, where we'll say, hey, CSOC may call us and say, hey, we're seeing an abundance of 15-year-olds right now, right? Can we work to move towards meeting the 15-year-old range inside of one of your programs? Also, we're really aware of the behaviors that are presenting inside of a program. So sometimes we might say, hey, we can't take this child right now because it's not going to be a good mix with the other kids inside of the program, right? So we just, it's not rocket science, right? And so, but we just try to make sure that it's as clinically appropriate as possible. For example, if you have a child that's been the victim of a sexual assault, and then you've got some sexually reactive behavior inside of the program already from another child, you're never going to put those two kids together in the same program. That's the idea behind it. We do have the benefit at Legacy, and Allies shares in that as well. First off, this is not a competitive effort, so we should understand from an industry perspective, right? YCS, Allies, Legacy, nobody's like, oh, you're taking our kid. That's not how any of this works at all. However, Legacy has a large continuum. So we do children's mobile response and stabilization, and we run a psychiatric screening center inside of Burlington County. Later, because everybody wants to hear from me twice, you'll hear about the work that we're doing at Salem Medical Center. But the reason why that's really helpful is because the system doesn't always work very smoothly, and not everybody's aware of all of the different resources that are available. And then also, and I know it might sound a little bit like I work for DCF and CSOC, but a new RFP, wow, awesome. The Department of Children and Families issued an RFP just last week for intensive mobile response and stabilization specific to youth who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so, and the clinical modalities that those are shaped after are really best practices in the country, marrying both services from an intellectual and developmental disability realm and that from best practices in mental health. And so that's a very fast award, right? So with a aggressive timeline to be open prior to the end of, to the start of 2023. So that's kind of the crisis stabilization and programs in a nutshell. And so I think maybe now would be a good time to open it up for questions. Sure.
Yeah, so we also have some questions in the chat, but okay. Oh, go ahead,
Do you want
Gabby.
to do here? Do you want me to read this off in the chat first, or you want me to do in person first?
I think we should do in person first.
Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm Laura Suhersky. I'm in Region 1 Council. My son was actually at one of your programs several years ago, and it was actually very successful, so we appreciate it. But as a parent, we'd been in crisis for probably a year before he was able to get into one. And a lot of that, some of it was obviously just lack of resources. This was 3 years ago. But a lot of it is also just the ability to learn about these programs. Like, we had been in and out of hospitals. We had been in and out of emergency rooms. Our CMO kept telling us, don't take him to the emergency room. It can't help. We finally got to the point where he was too dangerous to be home, and he was hospitalized in a hospital in Pennsylvania for a couple of weeks. The day we brought him home, we got a call saying his crisis bed opened up, and we'd been waiting and waiting and waiting. And I thought the timing was interesting. So I'd asked the person, and I'm like, this is great. We want to go, but like, why did it just happen the day we bring him home? And she was like, well, we only take them after they come out of a hospital. Like, that's what triggers his priority waiting list. And I'm like, if we had known that, we might have taken him to the hospital 9 months earlier, because he hasn't gotten better in 9 months. He's just gotten worse. And we were, he physically was damaging houses. He was hurting people. He was strangling me. I will say he came home between the hospital and the crisis bed. He came home in really awesome condition. He was able to transition home. It was very successful. But families need to understand how these programs work. I'm not saying that it's a tough decision, I'm sure, deciding who's the next in line. But oftentimes the messaging we get from CMO is not what the process is, and it's not conducive to helping your kid get the services they need timely. And so somehow that communication really should be improved.
I think that's why we're here, right? For sure. And I don't believe that's unique to the system for youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities, especially since the pandemic. You're 100% correct. We just have a long waiting list. So we actually don't always determine who comes in next or when they come in. And I think some of that information is a little, admissions don't only come from inpatient units. What happens is judges and inpatient units tend to get to folks where they say, hey, you don't have a choice, right? And so we're constantly kind of moving shells around where the most needy child is the one that's getting the next available bed. And that just, you know, the dynamics of that are difficult. I think the answer is across the board is standing up additional services, right? It's just, we need more beds. We need more programs that are capable of managing this and that are available. And so, you know, I really think that's the answer. But, you know, Diana, Mike, did you want to say anything in regard to that? You're on mute, Diana.
Yeah, regarding the weight, there is a weight in the referral process. I can describe in more detail as well. So it really does depend on the age of the youth. As I mentioned, we have programs for younger youth, and you know, as Roy said, we look at about a 3-year age span, but it could go up higher depending on the youth, their functioning level, where they are developmentally. So the youth in the middle age group had the longest wait, and because they're the most being referred. And as Roy said, we are always looking at opportunities for more services. One of the struggles we have is that when a youth, sometimes when youth do go into the crisis programs for short-term stabilization, it's some families struggle with having the youth come back home because of the level of need and level of care. So we do have some youth that have been in the crisis stabilization program longer, waiting for a bed to open up in one of the other residential programs. We have group homes for youth that aren't in crisis, for youth that you know, are in need of 24-hour care. So many times we really are trying to have youth move from one setting to another, and that does hold up youth in the list, unfortunately. We started off with 0 beds. As Roy said, the first 3 that were awarded went to legacy, and then we saw that need continue to grow, and we've continued to open up crisis programs. I can't say that there's any occurring in the immediate future, but the need is recognized. The other piece that is critical is development of services in the community, so families are able to get that support at home. And so it's not only available in a residential setting. So we did issue a pretty amazing RFP if folks want to take a look at it. It's on nj.gov/DCF. There is something that says notices and RFPs. And we are now looking at developing a in-home program, basically bringing residential services, the services and supports into individuals' homes, so families are able to get support in their home and have the youth remain with them rather than going into an out-of-home setting. So that's one recent development. Diana?
This is Gabrielle Bohan, Vice Chair. There's a question in the chat, specifically, how many beds are there? And do you have an idea of how many people are on the waiting list?
Sure. Yes, there's 50 beds. So there's 10 programs. They're all 5-bed programs, and it depends on the age. I mean, the age of the youth who's waiting. It's that middle group. There's at least a dozen youth waiting. And then for under the age of 12, there's 4. And over the age, well, that middle group, I was saying 14 to 17. And over the age of 17, we have 5 youth waiting. So there are at this point over 20 youth waiting for admission to a CSAP program.
And I just wanted to add, because there was a comment made about prioritization. These are point in time beds, which means that technically we're not supposed to have a waiting list. It's based on need the day of. And but we do, because there's a need, and we're actively working to expand our offerings. This is a priority for the children's system of care. We are very excited about this new program that we're going to be standing up, that's going to provide, basically take a residential model of services, intensive services, and bring them into the home. And we're hoping to stand that up this coming year. So I would encourage, actually, someone just put it in the, thank you, Kayoko, put the request for proposals, which includes the description of this new program in the chat. But in terms of prioritization, we have a clinical team at the Children's System of Care. We have about a staff of 70 people that provides oversight for this huge system. And, as you know, we contract with all these providers. And within that staff of 70, we have a clinical team, which includes myself, our chief psychiatrist at the Department of Children and Families, our assistant chief psychiatrist, and several other veteran clinicians. And what we try to do on a daily basis, as issues come up, youth-specific issues come up, and questions about bed availability with this particular program, is that we try to prioritize youth based on needs, safety risks, resources, and it's a very imperfect process, but we do our best to really weigh all the factors. And the wait list is a little bit misleading, because it's not like you just necessarily take the next person, number 1, number 2, number 3. So I can see how the CMO might deliver information such as youth that are discharged from hospitals get priority admission, that it's just not true. I mean, it is far more complicated than that, as the clinical team really weighs all the risk factors for each youth and young adult as we make those decisions. So I hope that's helpful.
This is Donna Icovino. I think embedded in the first question was really a concern about not knowing ahead of time what is available. Is that correct? And not, of course, I was in a similar situation with my own son. So the point of publishing the Enhanced Family Crisis Handbook was to help families navigate the system and inform them about what resources are available. And the third edition of the handbook is now going to be able to add online any new programs. So the programs that are being discussed by Legacy and the administrative people from CSOC will appear as soon as those programs, start up. We will place that information. Now, Molly Green has been very helpful. She has put on the website and also in the Perform Care website a link to the Enhanced Family Support Crisis Handbook. We're still requesting that DDD do the same. It's on the ARC of New Jersey's website and a whole variety of outreach organizations. So again, all the resources are within this book, and that, would, highlight, according to your loved one's needs. So.
We have another question in the room.
Hi, Kathy Tamburello from Council 4. I have two questions. The first one you've kind of answered, but I just want to make sure. Given the fact that there's clearly a need for more beds and more services, is the holdup lack of appropriate agencies to provide the services? Is the holdup funding? What is the holdup? And then my second question is unrelated. I co-chair the IDD subcommittee for Essex County. And one of the things that's been discussed quite a bit, and actually is the topic of our meeting on Monday, is the uptick in crisis issues for children under age 6, for very young children. And I'm just wondering, what we're thinking we can do to support those little guys.
Yeah, great question. So this lasts for a little bit over a year. We have embarked on rolling out a infant and early childhood intervention, which really has shifted our culture to serve those younger, our little ones. And starting with mobile response and our CMOs. So they've received, mobile response has received some pretty extensive training and support in delivering services to our little ones. And CMO has started, for those youth with moderate to high needs and their families, has started to open up cases and started to work with that subpopulation. And we've actually seen in our data, we've seen an uptick in service delivery for that group. So I think there's more to come in that realm. So, that's an area we're certainly exploring. And I'm glad you asked the question about, I should say, we're not exploring that, we're expanding in that direction to really serve younger kids. And I'm glad you asked the question about RFPs. It's not an issue of funding. We are issuing RFPs or requests for proposals for new programs as fast as we can write them. You're going to see a lot coming out this year. We just released the intensive mobile RFP, and there's a lot more to come. The issue really is right now in this very unique time is that we're in the middle of a behavioral health crisis across the nation and the world, right? We're seeing the terrible consequences of the pandemic and isolation on our youth. And we know that our youth with IDD challenges and their families have been disproportionately negatively impacted by the pandemic, who cannot benefit in the same way from telehealth, just as one example. The issue is really, we are also in the middle of a national staffing shortage. So we can produce these RFPs and we're sitting on the edge of our seat, waiting and hoping that we will have agencies that respond. I mean, that really is at the crux of the issue. So there's a lot of funding right now for behavioral health, care management, and the continuum services that come along with that. It's just a matter of, can we get people into those positions to deliver the services? And agencies have to really weigh out whether or not, while they may be very interested in embarking and standing up these programs, they have to really weigh out, like people like Roy, am I going to be able to staff up these programs? And that's the primary concern of our providers right now, not to mention that our existing providers are completely taxed. We have the highest volume of calls for services in our 20+ year history than we've ever had from parents. We are just, running to try to meet the need. I hope that helps.
Okay. So thanks so much, Diane. So I think that we're kind of over time. So any other questions, we can absolutely get to our speakers and get the responses back. But for right now, we're going to do the overview of services for adults. I think there were some questions in the chat regarding adult services with John Seafried, Bonny, Uchenna Life, and Roy is also going to discuss that as well. Thank you, Roy. Okay. So Jonathan.
Certainly. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. It's still morning. I'm just going to share my screen so I can go through a PowerPoint. So give me a moment for that. Share. All right. Can everybody see the main slide? Yes. Okay, great. So good morning, everyone. I do apologize that I'm not there in person. The New Jersey Statewide Self-Advocate Network 38th Annual conference is occurring at the same time, and I gave some opening remarks there. Otherwise, I would have been there in person. But I'm thankful that timing worked out, that I'm able to still come and talk to you all about these important topics. So I'm very appreciative of Roy, Michael, and Diana kind of going over and setting a primer, because I think that's sets a good foundation for behavioral health stabilization programs for adults. So the Division of Developmental Disabilities, we've had emergency capacity programs, emergency beds in the system for some time. Echoing what I think Diana, Michael, and Roy had said, maybe mostly Diana, but what we've noticed, especially since the pandemic, is that individuals are presenting with profiles that are really outpacing those programs. So the supports in those programs. So what the Division of Developmental Disabilities did was, recognizing that need, we did put out a request for proposal to open up, I wouldn't call it a clone of the CSAP program by any means, because it is a different RFP, but I think I would describe it as being sort of akin to that, to offer a much higher level of service than is available in our typical emergency capacity programs. And I'll go over staffing, et cetera, for that, how the differences are in that regard. It's not, I wouldn't describe it as inpatient, because inpatient is a, more of a clinical term. Inpatient would mean, the system, 2 psychiatrists, doctors have established that the person really needs an inpatient psychiatric admission. And this really doesn't replace that level of care. This is really to provide, a conduit so people don't, there's another option so people don't need to go into, in more of an inpatient kind of a thing, placement in a hospital system. And also to provide, kind of a discharge plan for people that are coming out of that sort of a setting. And, just really kind of add to our continuum of services. The way I would describe it is, within our system, to date, we've had, obviously our high level developmental centers, which are not the are not widely used as a regular, kind of a service. Then we have our ECS emergency capacity programs. And as I said, the profiles really are outpacing today what those systems can support. And then we had group homes. So this is really meant to be something kind of, another element within the continuum, where we have now community behavioral health stabilization homes. I'm also going to talk about a more acute model that we're standing up at the same time. But that said, we've recognized the need for this a higher level of programming above typical group home or emergency capacity bed, but below a developmental center or inpatient psychiatric sort of service. So we did an RFP in 2021 and released that to solicit the development of 3 4-person beds, 3 group homes, each 4 people each with their own bedroom across the state in different areas. We are looking at the northern region, central region, and southern regions of the state. And the purpose of those is to provide a short-term, person-centered intensive stabilization service for people experiencing behavioral health challenges that can't be safely managed in the home without posing a serious risk to the individual or others in that home. And this is going to be available for individuals that reside in family homes or on their own, or also for people that may be in a group home and need a stabilization period. So the RFP that we have was awarded to the Young Adult Institute, YAI. They're an organization that's been around for decades, so they're a nonprofit. And they been providing crisis intervention services in different states in the nation for over 35 years. I did provide, just to say, a copy of the slide deck to Kyoko, and I'm sure that will be circulated to people that are participating, just so you don't have to, scramble to take notes. So this is going to focus on providing crisis services and temporary residential supports to those presenting with severe behavioral challenges. We are very careful to not pigeonhole this to people that have to have a mental health diagnosis along with a developmental disability or not. We really are looking at it's behavioral health. So that could be a continuum of a lot of different things, but an exclusionary criteria is not the lack of mental health diagnoses. There's going to be clinical services baked into the model, therapeutic environment, and really looking to build on individual strengths and goals to reduce crisis and enable people, to be active participants in their community. I see some questions popping in the chat related to trauma-informed care, et cetera. I do have a slide on the training deeper on, but we do address trauma-informed care and some other, as well as some other areas. So we have, it's going to develop individualized service, safety, and behavioral support plans, and really, driving home the person-centeredness of it. As Michael Higginbotham said earlier, and Roy as well, no two individuals are alike. So a cookie cutter approach to services is just not realistically going to work. You want to have the menu of services, for lack of a better term, to be consistent, but you're going to use different services and different supports for different people based on what they're presenting with. These programs are going to encourage and fully support family involvement, regular communication with the family, pre-admission, upon admission, and thereafter, to understand what may have the factors that led up to the situation that is occurring. There's going to be a clinical team, and we've in the community program we have the role of a transition navigator, and they're going to be the primary liaison between for the behavioral health stabilization home team, and they're going to have a minimum of weekly contact to provide clinical updates and really talk about steps towards discharge. Now, in terms of overall stay, while nothing's set in stone because no two individuals are alike, we did have to have some kind of a target. So we are looking at like a 90-day stabilization period, but we recognize for some people that's going to be shorter, but for some people that's going to be longer, and that's okay. We recognize that people are going to be in different places and need different supports. So there's going to be regular meetings at certain milestones within the program. So that's going to be upon intake, 2 weeks post-admission, a month post-admission, 2 months post-admission, 2 weeks pre-discharge, and upon discharge. And there's going to be work done also related around the discharge to whether the person's going back to a family home, if that's what is right for them, or going to a residential setting, an out-of-home setting. There's going to be work to train either the family or the staff in the target home, so that way they're trained on what the services and supports are that we'll put in place for the individual. And also just seeing some other things in the chat. Division services are available to individuals 21 and older. So this would be for those individuals that are 21 and up and eligible for division services. So they are going to work, the team will work to agree upon a discharge date about 2 weeks post-admission, but we recognize there's target, it's a target. I just don't want people to think day 90, they're, the person's out no matter what their circumstances is. That's not what the message is here. It's really, we want to be working towards a goal collectively. Those milestone meetings, the IDT, that planning team will discuss progress or lack thereof, if there hasn't, that's been observed, and how to address those things. And there's going to be different data points, included that really drive that conversation. So that way it's really based on what the experience of the individual is. So now I want to talk about the acute version of the program. So we recognize that, as I said earlier, we need a continuum of services. Like I think, as I said, it was, group homes, the emergency capacity system, and developmental centers. We need things in between all of those things. So this is meant to be a more, we're calling it the acute behavioral health stabilization program. Now, this is really a companion program to the behavioral health stabilization programs in the community. And it's meant for people that have a more intense profile or footprint in terms of needs. So that's if they need a staffing ratio of 2 to 1 or greater, or they're going to have a medical overlay. Maybe they have intensive behavioral health challenges coupled with the need for a feeding tube. That's not some nursing care for a feeding tube. Or we have individuals that present whose doctors recommend, a really intensive medication adjustment, where they need to be someplace, inpatient for a period of time to really slowly be titrated off medications and slowly have other medications introduced. And those would need to be done in a setting with, a doctor on site, et cetera, which would be more akin to the acute program. So that is going to be one specific program located on the grounds of the new Lisbon Developmental Center. I visited it about a week ago to see where the progress is. We're waiting for furniture to get delivered, et cetera, but we're in good shape for that to open soon, as well as the behavioral homes in the community. When fully operational, that's going to serve between 8 and 12 individuals. And that's, I say between 8 and 12 because it's really depending on the acuity. It's really 8 beds. But if we have the capacity to have 4 of those bedrooms be occupied by 2 individuals, based on the acuity of those individuals, we'd have 4 2-person bedrooms and 4 1-person bedrooms. So it could be between 8 and 12. And another difference with that program is we have a habilitation plan coordinator who acts in place of the transition navigator. So, and that program is going to closely follow the tenets of the community behavioral health stabilization programs. Those staff are going to be working, and will be well trained in crisis management, de-escalation, et cetera. And it's really going to focus on trauma-informed care. So I have just a few more slides because I know there's other people that have things to contribute, but then we will absolutely answer questions. So this, I wanted to provide, kind of an overview of training. Now, this isn't every nook and cranny training that staff receive in each program, but I thought this was important to go over. So I know Roy talked about Ukuro. That's something that we are, going to be having embedded within the community behavioral health stabilization homes, and it's under review to add in the acute program. So then both programs are going to have training for staff in crisis management, trauma-informed care, positive behavioral supports, behavioral technician programming, psychiatric diagnosis and behavioral presentations, medication side effects. The YAI community program has a proprietary training called PERMA, Positive Emotion Engagement, Relationships, Meaning, and Accomplishments. And then each setting, because the community programs are really a home and community-based setting, they all have to go through the basic training that's required for all of our congregate group homes. And then as the acute program is part of an intermediate care facility program, there's a different set of programs that are federally required. I'm sorry, a different set of trainings that are federally required for those. The thing I'm trying to drive home here is we are pivoting more and really moving into trauma-informed care in a more meaningful way than we had done in the past, as well as other elements of training for the staff. And the referral process, now when we're fully open, and I'm going to, on the next slide, I talk about the projected openings, the tentative openings, but when open, we're going to have support coordination and DDD staff. They're going to be able to make referrals. We're going to have a referral form posted on the website, and as well as an intake form. And those need to be completed, when the person's accepted. We're really looking for those forms to be completed in their entirety, and all the available requested attachments are there. We know not everybody that may be presenting in a crisis situation, maybe new to division services, is going to have necessarily a lot of evals completed possibly in the past. So, but just as much as we could possibly get. And those referrals are going to be routed through our provider performance and monitoring unit, our clinical services team there. And they're going to do the review of those. The ultimate program that they'll be referred to will be based on a lot of different things, kind of similar, but not the same as what Mr. Higginbotham talked about with the CSOC side of things. But, it's capacity at the time, needs of the other residents in the program, because again, we don't want to put somebody in a program who has a challenge that is maybe, a trigger for somebody currently in one of the beds. So we're going to be looking at that. And we're also going to look at less restrictive services, if that's even possible. We're just going to make sure those have been looked at. And we will, get back to the support coordinator or the division staff related to the outcome of the evaluation, whether it's approved, denied, we have a different idea, or there's additional information that's required. And my last slide. So in terms of projected opening, while we put the RFP out in 2021 and wanted all the homes for the community program to open at the same time, a lot of different things happened over the last year. The housing market was very volatile. It was very difficult to get sites under contract, and purchase and get renovated. So we are going to have the homes open at different times, but we will have the northern home opening in the fall, which is, we're in the fall now of this year. And we're hoping within the next, 6-8 weeks or so, we'll have that home open. We're going to have that one open at capacity at 2. And then once we have residents in there for a few weeks and, make sure that everything's working the way we are envisioning, we are going to expand that to the capacity of 4 that the home can serve. And then the other home, the central home, will open late spring, early summer of 2023, and then the southern home in the summer of 23. Now, just to, I think a very legitimate question is why only 3 homes and 12 beds if we have a need? A part of that is that we want to make sure this model is everything we need it to be. So essentially, we're piloting this out. We feel it's very solid. It's one of the most comprehensive RFPs the division's ever put out around this. We do have it on the website that people can review that, but we have psychiatry built into it, nursing built into it, oversight, BCBA oversight. It's one of the more comprehensive service plan, service menus that we've had in a program all at once. And if this is successful, and we do expect it to be, then what we plan on doing is expanding it out and and opening more homes, much like CSOC did. I think they said they started with 3 homes, but then once they saw the efficacy of it and that it was working, they did an expansion. And then for the acute behavioral health stabilization program, we're looking for that to open this fall as well. I had mentioned earlier that I was there last week. The site looks really good. We're waiting on the furniture to come in, etc. So that is my presentation for this. I know that Bonnie and Roy have some things they want to talk about, but before I hand it off, I'll just reiterate what I opened with. We're looking to really add more to our spectrum of services. And I know that, I work closely with Bonnie and Ms. Dressner over at Trinitas. We know that there are individuals that present over at psychiatric screening in the community, may come to the 2D unit. This will be another element that can offer a runway for discharge for those individuals if we don't have an immediate disposition, plan for them. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, turn it over, and I believe once the adult groups complete with their presentation, we'll do the QA. So thank you all. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much. So again, I am Bonny Life. I am the Director of DD Services at Trinitas Regional Medical Center, RWJBH, for the CARES program. So for those that do not know, I believe everyone probably at this point know the CARES program because we've been around. Is it closer? Okay. Better? Thank you. It's better? Is it better? Good. All right, thank you. So the CARES program have been around for over 20 years. CARES means Crisis Assessment Response and Enhanced Services. So we are available to serve individuals that are 21 and up, that are dually diagnosed in the state of New Jersey, no matter where they reside. So we have offices in about 4 locations to 5 locations in the state. So we have office in Parsippany, which is our main northern region office. We have in Cranford, small administrative, also part of the office, and we have office in Ward Township, which is the main southern region office. So we are also in Mays Landing, Atlantic County area, and Voorhees. So we are 24/7 crisis operation. So that means you can call our toll-free 88 crisis line at any time, any day. So that number is 888-393-3007. Also, we'll make the slide for our in-service available for Coke so that she will be able to make sure that everyone have that for the benefit of those that are not in person. I think it will be more than helpful for everyone to be able to have something to reference when reaching out to CARES. So CARES have staff located in all these offices responding to crisis cases for individual 21 and up. And criteria to be referred to CARES is that anybody can refer a case to CARES. But though majority of the over 80% of the cases that we receive, referrals that we receive come from the emergency rooms. But that families, everyone can refer cases to CARES. And how the triage for that is when individuals are in crisis, when we get a call from families, we immediately advocate that they get them to the emergency room if they are in crisis. That way, then we will proactively reach out to the ER and begin the process of getting out to assess that individual within that safe environment. But if they are not in crisis and families or group homes or agencies, DD agencies are seeing some behaviors, then they are also welcome to refer those cases to us to proactively prevent emergency room presentation. So what happens at that point is that those cases are now opened, a clinician is assigned to be able to now work directly with the family. So once a case is opened with CARES, it has about 120 days duration to stay with us, to work with the agency, work with the family, or whatever the referring source is, and the individual clients themselves to help stabilize the individuals back to their baseline behavior. So within that time, the first line of action for CARES team for cases that are in the emergency room is to assess if the individuals need inpatient admission. The inpatient admission, the first line of inpatient admission that we assess for is the 10-bed specialized unit at Trinitas Hospital, which is the D unit. If they meet criteria for those beds, if they do, based on their functional level, then we will be making that recommendation, and then we will put them on our wait list to assess that 10-bed. The good thing is that 10-bed is potentially going to be expanded. So there is opportunity to add additional 12 beds that the state has approved, and that is in process. So that opens up some more opportunities for people that normally that list is always, there's always a wait list because of the beds, and then the unit having, sometimes they have issues discharging those that are already in there. And there's nothing you can do about that because they are not going anywhere. Until they get placement, then the beds are blocked for other people. So that's usually what makes it difficult for people to get on the unit, because they're trying to get off those that are already there that stabilized to try to get them placed. So for that section of assessment, if they do not need, we find out sometimes that individuals that do not need the acute admission because it's not to the benefit of the client. So we recommend that they are served at their local STCF. So for instance, if someone that is not really decompensated psychiatrically, maybe just need a simple medication adjustment. So we say, okay, local STCF short-term unit can do that instead of bringing them to an acute unit where they may, get learn a different bad, maladaptive behavior that may add to what they're already dealing with. So we advocate for that to take place in the local STCF. And then the good thing that happens, every case that's referred to us, we open a follow-up case for 120 days. And even after the 120 days, that case can also be reopened and represent to be carried on, because some cases do carry on above that timeline. But there's really no time a case is discharged forever. It's just that once we close the case because they've stabilized, if anything reoccurs that needs our involvement, then the case can be re-referred back to CARES. So we do work directly with DDD and DMHAS in these cases. And then the referrals that we get, sometimes families do confuse, or maybe emergency room screeners do confuse when to refer a case to us, which is the difference between being DDD linked and then being DD. So that is always confused. But for CARES, whether you are DDD linked or DD, to be referred to CARES, you have to be DD or DD eligible. That way we can serve and then be able to help you link for DDD services. Those that are already linked for DDD to DDD will also be part of our services. But it's also good for families to know that if you suspect that your child is DD or has behaviors that are very much related to being DD, you can refer them to, even if they are not, at the end of the day, we will do an assessment and then say, okay, this individual is more mental health, and then our services may not be continued. Then we'll refer you to ICMS or any other agency that may be able to serve those individuals. One thing that our services do, we do not say no. If we cannot serve, we will refer you or give you information where you can get services. So that's the information for families to know. And then part of our support system after individuals are admitted is that we work directly with the inpatient units, even if it's Trinitas or other inpatient units, to begin to discuss discharge plan and be part of the discharge planning. When those individuals get out, we are available, the assigned clinicians are available to participate in IDT meetings, provide trainings where necessary, and help in communication between families and the inpatient units and the treatment team to make sure that everything that is needed coming out is, as far as information is concerned, that they have it. And then when they do get out, the case, those that are assigned to the cases will also follow to the community to provide all needed services, including trainings, educating families. And we also do work very well with the Family Crisis Handbook. And I commend Donna and Dr. Ezrulu, who was, part of the team that initially founded CARES, was part of creating the family, together with Donna, Family Crisis Handbook. And we work with that book as part of our resource to support families. It has been a great resource for CARES to point families to some of the resources that are available to them. So while the processes of linkage is ongoing for clients that are DD eligible, CARES will continue to support the family, the agencies that are supporting these individuals in providing all of these services. And then within the 2D unit, we do have the opportunity to have the treatment team zero in all aspects of treatment needs that the clients may have. And then we make sure that they do get, adequate stabilization before they can come out. And then once they are coming out in the community, we are also prepared with the discharge summary and what is necessary for families to be able to help support the individuals. And if they are going into a new placement that is different from the one they had before, or maybe they're being placed outside of home, then the CARES team will also be proactive in providing training to the new agency to prepare them for who they are receiving. Because most of the time we find out that some of these agencies have no idea who is coming to them, some of the behaviors to look out for, how best to support the individual, what they like to do. Because part of our training that we found out is that sometimes you go out, you ask a question, tell me one behavior that this individual have. If it's 20 people in the room, you find out that almost, if not all 20, will list only negative behaviors. And we find that, it's really, so nobody really thinks about the positive behavior some of these clients present. They don't think about those as behavior. So a lot of people just list all the negative, they rip up the room, they do this, they do that. When you go across the room, you just gather all negative behavior. So we'll begin to teach that, look at the positive part, look at positive behavioral modification, look at the things they are doing better, track them, look at the times that they are good, why they are good, who's around when they are good, what time, what's happening. Look at those times and then begin to track it and see how best you can then redirect maladaptive behavior. So those are some of the skills that our clinicians have. So within our team, we have LPCs, LCSW, psychologists, licensed BCBAs. So we definitely have more like a curriculum of experts that can, in all aspects, look at a case and then make recommendations from all angles. So that takes me to the Project ECHO, which is part of the services that we provide. So in 2015, we sent a team of myself and Dr. Ezolu went to New Mexico to replicate the Project ECHO, which is more like a telehealth video conferencing platform. And that basically provides collaborative learning for families and for agencies. So how the Project ECHO work is, instead of having someone bring a client to us, and then we now identify those maladaptive cases that have been given more of frequency to the emergency room or given more behavioral issues to agencies. And then we present them to ECHO. So we prepare an ECHO case that is de-identified and then present it to a hub team of psychologists, behaviorists, BCBA, LPCs. They'll take the deep dive of that case within 1 week of submitting the template. And then on the day of ECHO section, this team is presented in a room where they will now, the referring source will be on the other side of the conference, Zoom, and then the case will be presented, and then they will provide recommendation from each discipline to be able to manage that case. What that provides is collaborative learning, and then also allows the families or agencies to get that service without leaving the comfort of their home. And if transportation is a problem, any of those things, they do not have to worry about it. But the case, during COVID, it was more of a very great benefit that we were proactive in having such service, and then COVID hit. So it was more like our service never ended. So we continue supporting families, supporting the cases we have. The only thing we ran into is like not everyone had the opportunity to have interface with the internet or system. So until they started getting those, and then it became more seamless to be able to now support them through Project ECHO. So anybody can refer any case for Project ECHO section review. Any case that you feel that is difficult, that is presenting high acuity to the emergency room, you can refer that by calling our 88 number as well. So that I will make, I think I mentioned that I will make that slide. In that slide, the toll-free number is also there for everyone to be able to refer a case to us. And no case that is referred to CARES is turned down. So we will, no matter what the issue is, we will assess and then consult and then be able to make a determination what the direction for that will be. And then recently there is the 988 that was rolled out. And I think I want to also commend the council, Arc of New Jersey, DDD, DMHAS for helping, in the rollout. I think this is a pilot program. CARES is also part of the handoff. I think Beverly Roberts have been very great in really putting together, advocating for families and the clients that we serve. So CARES is part of the rollout, a handoff rather. So if individuals, for instance, that present for suicidality are deemed not to be suicidal, or for whatever reason, the treatment is discharging them back to the community. So we recommend that that case is then referred to CARES for continued follow-up. So we would like to follow up with those individuals to actually rule out anything to be able to follow up, check in, make sure that all T's and everything is crossed, that they actually okay. Because one thing is for the emergency system to address what they thought was someone potential suicidal behavior. Another thing is someone to follow up and make sure that some of those things that they thought they've ruled out is actually something that you could rule out, and the families can rest easy that this individual is not going to be a danger to themselves in any way. So CARES is part of that handoff. So we encourage everyone to advocate that. If that is this case referred to CARES for follow-up. So if families have those cases that present to the ER for 988 or crisis, just make sure you ask the question, did you refer to CARES? Because that's a resource for families to have for follow-up to coordinate any resources that may not be clear to you. And part of our treatment is that we do have a treatment model, which basically means every case that presents to us has a treatment plan. So that is individual dedicated for the case within the first week or two of having that case. That is a comprehensive treatment plan specified, which is also the model of no two individuals are alike. So each case is presented with a treatment plan dedicated specific for those presentations and those behaviors. And that is exactly what guides those are assigned to the case together with the assessment recommendations to then proceed in providing interventions in the community. And as I said, the cases are for 120 days. And then after 120 days, they are reevaluated. If there's a need to proceed with that case, then we will do so without any hesitation. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks so much. I know we're running short on time, so I'm going to try and get through a lot of information in a very short period of time so folks understand stuff. But I want to thank Jonathan and Bonny Life and Mercedes and Kyoto for putting this all together. I just think it's really valuable information for everyone. So Legacy Treatment Services, in a collaborative effort with Wood Services and Salem Medical Center, opened up a 5-bed inpatient crisis stabilization unit for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities that were in psychiatric crisis, a danger to themselves or others. It's literally the most intensive service that one could imagine. It was actually modeled after Trinitas's unit and CARES. So again, very collegial. Folks should understand there's just an insufficient number of inpatient beds across the state of New Jersey, regardless of whether it's for adults that are in psychiatric crisis and need inpatient care, or if they're adults that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. What we wanted to do was, because Trinitas has the only 12 beds in the state, we wanted to spread that geography out. We literally wanted to replicate and develop an integrated care model. And so when Salem Medical Center was purchased by the ownership group that's there now, there was an application and then they opened up 26 inpatient psychiatric beds. Legacy provides the psychiatric services for those inpatient beds, as well as a cadre of staffing over there in collaboration with Salem Medical Center. We then, Woods Services, Salem Medical Center, and Legacy approached then Senate President Sweeney to say, we really wanted to open these services up. And so I think we surprised everybody. So because we didn't go through a traditional format, and we pleasantly surprised everybody with the initiative. The reality of it is that there's a stigma in the traditional mental health realm against individuals who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And there is not this sort of unmet desire to meet the needs of our loved ones. And so, but there is for us, right? And what we realize is that the only way that a true continuum of care is going to work is if you have all of the resources available for the families that they need. And so because Legacy does about 5,000 psychiatric screenings a year out of our screening center, we saw this unmet need. And when Woods in Langhorne still has many individuals from New Jersey, and when someone goes into psychiatric crisis, there's virtually no resources available to them. And so that's what we wanted to do, but we wanted to do it specific for as if someone who had a loved one with an intellectual and developmental disability was steering what that treatment was like, as opposed to a traditional mental health perspective, creating that program and that structure. And so, unfortunately, in the universe of healthcare, nothing is ever static and it's dynamic. And so we opened the unit, took a very long time to open it up. I don't know if folks are aware, but there was a pandemic. And then we opened it up, and then Inspira is purchasing Salem Medical Center. Salem Medical Center was financially struggling. And so the unit is open, but there's staffing challenges on the nursing front in Salem that have limited the program's ability. It is open, it is serving individuals, but once Inspira's purchase is finalized, which should be in the next couple of weeks, we expect big things from that unit. In essence, what had happened was when the bellwether exodus took place, and various providers stepped up to be able to serve some very behaviorally intensive individuals in the southern part of the state, the southern west part of the state, because we all love to argue over the geography of New Jersey. What we wanted to do was create inpatient mental health, substance abuse, and primary care wrapped together in the same location. And that's what we accomplished at Salem Medical Center. So in an area that had virtually no services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we thought it was a great place to incubate what an integrated care model would actually look like. And so and it was a collaborative effort, obviously, with Woods, Legacy, and Salem Medical Center. So the medical staff and all of the clinical staff are trained over at Woods, including the primary care physician, nurse practitioners. It's housed inside of the hospital. There is mental health and substance abuse outpatient, as well as primary care geared specific for individuals who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then we have the 5-bed psychiatric inpatient crisis stabilization program, which has a psychiatrist, a nurse practitioner, mental health technicians, that ultimately we would like to be able to have RBTs there. Just didn't want that to interfere with our ability to get our legs underneath us and moving forward. And so as that unit becomes more mature, we partner with the Division of Developmental Disabilities and the Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services in order to sort of stabilize the funding for the unit in terms of being able to supply all of those staff. How we were able to accomplish that and stand it up so quickly was through state appropriation that was given to Salem Medical Center. And so I want to be respectful of time. How do folks get into that unit? They come through CARES, they come through the screening centers that are located throughout the state. Each county has a psychiatric screening center. And so you can get to that screening center through various numbers, including 988 at this point. And average length of stay really should be between 7 and 10 days. And so, and what our hope was that we would then be able to, and again, I cannot explain this enough. It's a non-competitive model, right? So meaning, wonderful, Trinitas is going to open up 12 beds. I hope Hackensack Meridian opens up 30 beds, right? Like we are literally just trying to help folks and create a system so that individuals who are truly a danger to themselves or others can stabilize on their medication, right? So that we can put together a solid IHP, and that what we're not doing is having individuals who are really ready to go back into the community, because much of this is a cycle, right? Many of the individuals we work with, they're going to have brief moments of hospitalization, stabilize, and then what we try to do is create a life and a framework and a treatment plan, so the rates of recidivism in that cycle simply reduces over time, right? So that's it in a nutshell, but I want to be respectful of time and questions.
Hi, my name is Radhika. I have a soon to be 30-year-old with physical, mental, and health issues. It's a challenge taking care of him. Last July, we were in crisis, and it's hard. We went to be here. We called 911, and they took him to Princeton. At first, I think for anybody, you have to be cleared medically before you get psychiatric issues. So at first they found a medical issue for my son. And so they admitted him and they wanted to discharge. I refused to take him back because it has a behavior ER. They have a psychiatrist there who treated Suhas before too. My son's name is Suhas. And then every day they wanted to push me out. I did not. They changed his meds. And then I made sure he did not have any medical side effects. And I made sure that his behaviors were okay for us to bring him home. They did not call Trinitas or CARES because they told us your beds are full. So the next time I was told to drive directly to Trinitas Medical Center to get the help. So because of the medication changes and a good psychiatrist I have, who I pay privately, every 6 months we are tweaking the dose. So he's, knock on wood, good now. With that said, I want to ask the DDD commissioner a question. Mainly these behavior health short-term homes, do they need a medical clearance first? And who pays for it? Does it come from his budget? And what if the support coordinator does not agree with the family?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the question. I think I want to repeat back just to make sure I heard the question correctly. So I think, was the question about Salem Medical Center and how does that get paid for? Or was it about like the behavior?
No, this is about your YAI
Okay. All right,
short-term
thank you.
homes and acute home in acute facility in Lisbon.
Thank you.
So somebody like my son, do they have to go to ER first to get cleared medically?
Not necessarily. First off, the referrals will come through the support coordinator division staff. If you do disagree with your support coordinator as to whether or not a referral should be made, you can certainly contact the division directly. But we can work through that. We do have several, help desks that we can help in that regard. In terms of the intake process, the acute program will be, I think ideally, yes, we would like a doctor to say there's you're free and clear of communicable disease, et cetera, but that's not an exclusionary criteria. What we would do is for the acute program, we do have doctors assigned there and we can work something out for the community program as well. I believe they are equipped to take somebody to urgent care, et cetera, to be able to get that together. Okay. And in terms of funding, it's contract funding, and I get what that means to you is it wouldn't come out of the individual budget. It would be something we would use in terms of a crisis stabilization.
Okay, thank you. I just want to follow up. We need good psychiatrists in the community. A psychiatrist who knows developmentally disabled and mood disorders, how they work differently with regular psychiatrists who have mood disorders, and there are very few, and they don't take Medicaid, and they don't, and you know, that is very hard. Our crisis is happening because we don't have good psychiatrists to take them to.
Mhm.
This is something DDD and perform care. Everybody needs to look at that part too, because after the stabilization, we need a psychiatrist to follow up and adjust the medication. And that cannot happen if you don't have a good psychiatrist.
Understood. And just, 20 seconds on that. We are collaborating, I think both CSOC and the division, psychiatry, psychology, any medical follow-up, or it generally comes through what we refer to as state plan Medicaid. Doesn't come as a direct fund through the division, but we are working with our partners at the Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services and the Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services around the need for more robust psychiatry services for those people who with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I believe there's some other advocacy efforts going from ARC New Jersey and other areas. So it is something we are discussing, and I agree that is a real barrier to things. We need to be able to have psychiatry that individuals can access quickly.
Thank you, Jonathan. I just wanted to say Donna Icovino has not spoke. I just wanted to turn over the floor. Sorry, Donna.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Okay, all right. First, I just want to express my appreciation to the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities for funding the publication of the Enhanced Family Crisis Support Handbook. I am Donna Icovino and family advocate, but most importantly in my life, I am the mother of Michael, who is 37 years old, and Michael's life is affected by autism and bipolar disorder. In 2004, Michael had an extremely severe behavioral crisis, and that was my introduction to a service delivery system that was completely unequipped to provide any type of clinical assessment or treatment options for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and complex, severe behavioral health conditions during their greatest time of need. I found that incredible. That one traumatic experience from Michael and our family was the impetus for expanding my advocacy efforts to include all those in similar circumstances. The writing of all 3 crisis handbooks with my esteemed colleague, Dr. Lucille Estrelou, was a way to help families navigate an inadequate system that many of us were working hard at the time to reform. Although I'm not in your shoes, I want you to know that I understand the struggles you have gone through and may still be experiencing advocating for your loved ones. For the past 18 and a half years, I've had the privilege of counseling and working with families, alongside families, I should say, to help improve the overall quality of care and support for their cherished loved ones. Those family members have taught me a great deal. Their courage and unwavering determination have inspired me to develop the following methods to help others create a foundation for building and maintaining a solution-focused advocacy skill set. So what I first start out with when I'm working alongside a family member is I entitled Raise Your Expectations. When your child is born with an intellectual or developmental disability, and there are behavioral health issues as well, that a lot of between assessment and so forth, a lot of the information we parents get about our loved one are all the, you spoke about this, about all the deficits in their life, and people don't really focus on their strengths. So what I'm suggesting here is that it's essential to develop and uphold a strong belief in what is possible for your loved one to achieve. It's certainly wise to take into account professional thoughts and opinions about your loved one. I'm not telling you to discount that. What I'm saying is that it is equally important to acknowledge the person's capabilities from your perspective, what you're experiencing with them, maybe what they are able to communicate, even non-verbally, to you. And to cultivate a perspective based on experience and facts combined with raised expectations of what might be possible for the individual to accomplish. This firm belief in the person's ability to progress in both anticipated and unanticipated, unexpected ways will serve as a motivating factor, motivating force, I should say, to advance your cause, whatever that be. Next, you have to become an expert. Expertise involving a particular cause comes in multiple forms. It's important to educate yourself about specific topics related to the cause of your undertaking. So whether you're attempting to obtain access to crisis response stabilization services for your loved one, or trying to establish preventative measures to avoid a future crisis, you'll need to become familiar with how the service delivery system works. You can go online, there's online information, webinars, workshops, conferences such as this, publications, are just a few of the valuable, invaluable options that you have to become a more knowledgeable advocate. And then I also suggest sharing your expertise. So, volunteer that expertise, by being on advisory committees, school boards, presenting to state legislators or state human service agencies. When you become the expert, share it, because you're going to, pay it forward to the next person. The next thing I call is being a savvy consumer. What I mean by that is productive advocates understand that their primary responsibility is to obtain the very best quality services and supports that they can identify to efficiently manage the individual's special needs. So research existing resources according to the individual's needs, and utilize your advocacy skills to obtain those services and supports that are deemed most appropriate. And also remember to utilize the documented professional opinions and recommendations of those with expertise in their practice field to support your advocacy efforts. Next, I have manage your advocacy cause like a business. I was taught this when my son was still 2 years old, and I had been a businesswoman before he was born, and the psychologist working with him said, well, you have business skills, apply them here as you're advocating for Michael. It was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever received. The key to successful advocacy is being diplomatic, articulate, concise, and practical minded in your approach. think about handling these advocacy interactions as if they were a business transaction. When emotions take over the focus of your advocacy mission, you get completely sidetracked, and any momentum gained might be lost. You will get greater mileage out of your advocacy efforts if you approach every opportunity in a professional, business-like manner. Before exiting a meeting, insist on a proposed next step action plan and timeline for implementation. Key. Because you get a lot of promises, but people say, we'll get back to you. I always had a calendar next to me and I said, well, when will you get back to me? And they said, well, in a couple of weeks. And I would look and I said, oh, a couple of weeks is October 15th. So I'll hear from you by October. And that really, worked to keep everybody on the same page and avoid future roadblocks that might slow down the process toward achieving your advocacy goals. I also recommend exercise the human, civil, and legal rights of citizens with disabilities. Educate yourself about the human, civil, and legal rights of people with disabilities at both the state and federal level. There's tremendous power in applying this knowledge. It can save you much time and energy because the legal system has already done the hard work to enact these essential privileges. In the handbook, there is a section listing the disabilities rights resources. So if you're not sure where to get started, look to the handbook. Never stop networking. It's amazing what you can discover and uncover when you're open to networking with professionals, friends, family members, educators, service providers, direct support professionals, outreach organizations, state representatives, etc. Be sure to obtain their names, get business cards, their affiliations if they don't have a business card, contact information, and do not hesitate to contact these individuals. In turn, be sure within your network to share and to facilitate connections among those in your network whose expertise and opinions are valued. Do not be afraid to take it to the top. You have a right as a citizen of the state of New Jersey to advance your cause up the ladder to those persons in top leadership positions. Keep requesting help to move your cause forward, and do not stop until someone finally agrees to support your cause. I was telling Paul Aronson earlier that I brought a proposal for the Department of Human Services to establish a dual diagnosis task force. And I brought my proposal to Governor Corzine's town hall meeting. And I asked him, can I hand in, I'm working on a project, may I hand in a folder of information to one of your aides? He said, of course. An aide came over, handed me her card, and she said, call me tomorrow. And 3 weeks later, I was sitting at inside the State House down the hall from the governor's office, presenting my proposal. And a few months later, it was approved. So it's amazing, what can happen if, again, you know that you have a right, to bring it up that far. And Governor Corzine wasn't aware of the issue at the time, so it was pretty powerful. Another suggestion is to remain solution focused. It's very important to bring an issue to light and all the more constructive if you can couple a concern or complaint with a recommended solution. Starting off by citing something positive, it can break the ice, as we've all heard, before moving on to presenting a problem in your practical and creative solutions. Be a team player. You will accomplish your advocacy goals much quicker if you embrace the team spirit mentality. Being adversarial will only work against you. Being open-minded, respectful, and grateful to the other team members does not mean you have to alter your convictions to appease other members. And I'm talking about child study teams, IDT teams, advise, if you're on an advisory committee, stick to your convictions. You can be firm and convincing without being argumentative. So do your best to maintain a pleasant and optimistic demeanor all the time, keeping your eye on the prize. Trust your instincts. Be open to compromise as long as it does not jeopardize your core values or interfere with attaining your ultimate goals as an advocate. Do not back down from your cause because of applied pressure or fear of retaliation. Stay strong. In the end, your persistence will pay off in meaningful ways. Going along with that, do not give up. There will be times when you feel extremely discouraged and your goals seem to be completely out of reach. Opposing parties will try to convince you that what you're proposing is not needed or cannot be done or has never been accomplished, or there's no money to fund it. Do not be swayed. Persist in your efforts. See yourself as pioneering this initiative. Be creative. Keep in mind that pessimism is a misuse of the imagination. And finally, take a moment to pat yourself on the back. Parents never do this. I never did this. It's not enough to simply believe in your cause. You also will need to firmly believe in your ability to make this happen. Needless to say, when progress is achieved, the personal rewards are truly priceless. So take a moment to feel good about your accomplishments. This will go a long way in keeping you resilient and motivated to take on the next phase of your endeavor or subsequent worthwhile causes. And just my closing remark is my hope for each of you is that your advocacy will be driven by boundless passion, resourcefulness, and unwavering determination. And just remember, the love for your child is much more powerful than any bureaucracy.
We're running over time, and so that we can get through this afternoon session. Any questions that are in the chat, we will forward to the speakers. And I'm sure the speakers are going to enjoy the lovely lunch that we have here for them. So if you're here in the room and you have questions, the speakers will be here for you. But I want to first thank everybody for coming. Thank our speakers, both here in person and also online, for joining us. I want to also thank everybody who's here in person at the meeting. It was a rainy day, but at least it wasn't as bad as what the weatherman said it was going to be. And in those who are online for us, for joining us. The presentations are all recorded and will be available on our website. I just want to thank everybody for being here. Wonderful. And your suggestions, your guidelines for advocacy, we can use all of them in all the activities that we do, because we are our loved one's best advocate. So again, thank you all for coming. We're going to take the break for our lunch for the people here in person. We will be back at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, hopefully on time, to continue with our business meeting. And for those who aren't returning online, our next statewide is November 19th. So I'm hoping that you can join us then also. Enjoy the day. Hopefully the sun will come out and we'll have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Okay, and also this is Gabrielle Bohan, Vice Chair of the Family Support Planning Council that was speaking.
That part.